Okay, but I do want to spend more time on the book because the book is so important, and it is just like all Van's books because they are well researched. And the other joke I made is that she provides example after example, and then she provides example after example after example to prove her arguments, which is another lost art, which is you've got folks like Al Sharpton who goes on, and we were playing these clips, says the president spreading neo-Nazi propaganda and that David Duke is, Trump is in bed with David Duke, and the reporter who gets her own show, a person named Katie Tur. Last I checked, Ann, neither you or I have a show on cable news. There's no follow-up. Please provide one example, Mr. Sharpton, that you're talking about. You just throw it out there, and we move on.
Well, which is great in the era of Trump because it's become a game of one-upmanship. Soon they'll say that he is Hitler reincarnated.
Right. Yeah, no. Well, he's going to be worse than Hitler soon. He's going to be, that's where we're headed. So, but one thing that we have to know is that you have, and this is, again, where you're on point, you fleshed out actually what happened with Cohen and Manafort better than I'd seen articulated. I couldn't believe it, that it was a great reference point for me because that's been the heart of the news cycle. This broke the day, the Cohen and Manafort stories broke the day your book came out. So talk to us a little bit about the truth, what people you see are missing in the skewed press coverage of these two people connected to Trump.
Well, the actual crimes in both cases have absolutely nothing to do with Trump, absolutely nothing to do with the campaign. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. And it reminds me of the Mueller is a Russian chapter about the special counsel's office being our one Soviet import. I mean, if you have 17 extremely talented and extremely determined prosecutors looking at specific people in search of a crime. There are so many federal crimes on the books, they have never been counted. Efforts have been undertaken, but it can't be done. So if you want to get someone on something, and some of these, like, Michael Flynn, most of Mueller's plea bargains are lying to investigators. And I'm not saying you should lie to investigators. It's a very bad thing, but that's a process crime that only exists because of the investigation. So with Manafort, it's complicated tax issues. I'm not a tax lawyer. Talked to a liberal guy who went to Harvard and wanted to be a tax lawyer last night, and a journalist, and I was interested to hear him say that on the law, the tax case is a very close case. You could kind of go either way, which I sort of suspected because I know you can make money abroad and you can park it abroad. And as I point out, the pioneer of figuring out how to avoid taxes on money made abroad is, ta-da, George Soros. So let's hope this must mean Mueller's going after Soros next. And as for Cohen, it's so outrageous that they're throwing in the campaign finance violation, utterly, completely making clear that the only reason they even looked at Cohen, and yeah, he looks a little shady to me. I'd believe there might be a little tax evasion in there. Right. But the only reason they're even looking at him is because he worked for Trump and said he'd take a bullet for Trump. Which by bullet, it turned out he meant a warm summer's breeze. That's all he'd take for Trump. That's it. Anything stronger and he's out. But the campaign finance violation, the simplest way to explain why this is crap, and there are many reasons. It has to be knowing. The worst thing that would happen to Trump is that he'd have to pay, or his campaign would have to pay a fine. Oh no. But the reason I don't think you're ever, it's not that I don't think, it is a fact, you're never going to be in the ballpark, is to be a campaign expense, it has to be an expense that was spent only because you were running for office. That's the problem with many of these cases that never get brought. But for anyone who ever has run for office, it's kind of a joke. Well, did I buy this new suit because I need a new suit, or is it because I'm running for office? And that's the only reason I had to get a new suit. How about Trump's settlement of the Trump University case? Right. Wow, would have looked bad if that lawsuit was continuing. Is that a campaign expense? I'm quite sure, and it doesn't matter whether I'm right or not.
But there actually is a clear example of this, Ann,
yes,
which you bring up, which is John Edwards.
On death row. And he actually, in his case, I think it pretty clearly was because of the campaign, and it was still a ridiculed prosecution, and he was still acquitted. In that case, he had multimillionaire friends paying to support his mistress and love child during his campaign. to hide it from the voters while his wife was dying of cancer. More than $1 million they were paying for this gal, Riel Hunter. Once the campaign was over, hey, are those millionaires still supporting her? Are they supporting her for the rest of her life, or her and the love child? And yet, when that prosecution was even brought, I mean, I think that was something that you could, if you're going to get into a personal matter, that could very, very easily be described as because of the campaign, for the reason I just said. Yet and still, when that prosecution was brought, it was universally ridiculed and the jury acquitted. So, come on. $130,000.
Yeah, that's right. You nail this because the Edwards went away. The Edwards example went away after the campaign was over, and in the example of President Trump, you get the impression he would have probably paid off these women the same way if he wasn't on the campaign, just to avoid embarrassment and scandal. And so it's not a campaign issue. And if it is a campaign issue, worst case scenario, this is so far from Russian collusion and impeachable. We're talking about a campaign finance violation. Not flattering, doesn't look good. President shouldn't be doing it. All those necessary caveats aside. But how far afield are we, Ann, from he colluded with the Russian government to rig an election?
Yes, and I don't even think it's that bad a thing. I mean, Obama paid nearly $500,000 in campaign finance reporting violations fines. It was about, I think it was about $400,000. That didn't even make, page A14 of the New York Times. Campaigns do it all the time. They're very convoluted, confusing rules in some cases. I mean, sometimes it's really obvious. And I'm sorry, it was really obvious in the case of Dinesh, and also there was a California fundraiser for Obama. Yeah. When you're paying off other people to give the legal maximum, you know what you're doing when you're reimbursing them. Okay, there are cases like that, but most of the time it's, is this a campaign expense or not?
Okay, so Ann, I've got at least a half a dozen more questions. I know we're not going to get to all of them, but a couple of things that I was thrilled to see that you debunked the P-word tape, the Access Hollywood tape. This has been a media lie forever that the president admitted to abusing women. He is doing, not only is it locker room talk, he says this is what women will let you do. It's commentary on celebrity culture. You have the clearest and most concise summation of this. Talk about it.
Thank you. To say it quickly, and he's that famous line where he said, my fans love me so much, or my supporters, I think he said, because this is when he's running for office. I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, and they wouldn't leave me. He uses the exact same phraseology. Okay, he uses a bad word. It does sound a little sophomoric. Can you
agreed.
That? Trump haters. But he's using the exact same phraseology when he says, when you're a celebrity, you can do anything. You can grab them by the blank. They let you do it.
Yes.
That is a case you could win on summary judgment. Judge, he said they let you do it. There's no sexual assault if they let you do it. Good point, counselor, case dismissed. So the reason I mentioned that one is everyone has said it. Anderson Cooper asked it in a debate. Hillary Clinton has said it. Lots of responsible journalists, allegedly, responsible journalists. Well, some responsible, a lot of irresponsible journalists. Let me put it that way. So I have this quote of a slew of them, or quotes from a slew of them, saying, the president admitted to sexual assault on tape. And I just want to alert readers, anyone who says that is a stone-cold liar. Oh, and footnote, one other point, showing consciousness of guilt. I looked up how the Access Hollywood tape was played on TV, and noticed that they carefully edited out the part of him saying they let you do it. Now that's consciousness of guilt.
Absolutely, it is. This is a point that reasonable, I think, thoughtful people have been making, and yet it does not get the light of day in the establishment press. I'm glad that you fleshed it out. Again, I'm not condoning it. I'm not saying it was the best thing ever in the history of campaign politics, but why do you have to go further? Why do you have to lie? Like, you got a good tape. Like, why not take the stand-up double? They try to act like this is a three-run bomb into the upper deck. It's not. It's not.
It's so symbolic of the resistance. There
That's
are
right.
things you could go after Trump on. You and I go after him for them.
Frequently.
There are things you could nail him for. Why do you have to lie and ruin your case and drive sensible people back into his arms?
Okay, perfect segue to the other thing that you debunked that I think is most powerful, maybe the other most, I don't want to say most powerful because every chapter's got something powerful in it, but what you talk about, a lot of the origin of the Russian collusion conspiracy is based on one Trump tweet that was a joke. Give us the details.
Wait, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'll put more detail on this. The Trump meeting that Donald Trump said that he encouraged the hacking.
Trump Tower meeting. Yes.
I got ahead of myself. Bad segue. I'm taking a mulligan, which you can't really do on live radio, but sometimes entertaining. The Trump Tower meeting that he encourages the Russians to release the emails, but he's making a joke. Please hack Hillary and release the emails, whatever the exact quote was. Clearly tongue-in-cheek, meant to be provocative, and this is touted as examples of him coordinating with Putin to rig an election.
That's the other time I had to give 17 or more examples. He asked Putin to hack the DNC. He said, he told the Russians, please hack, please hack. If you see the hack in any of these descriptions, there are actually two big scandals around Trump that rely on the distinction I'm about to describe. Hard to remember, but Hillary had two separate and distinct email scandals. One was the DNC emails, and then months later, John Podesta's emails being hacked and then produced, something the media does to Republicans every election cycle, as they did with the Access Hollywood tape, produce some private conversation that was not that voters weren't supposed to know about it, and the candidate wouldn't like it. Democrats, how do you like it? You do it to us all the time. And number two, her private server emails that were the very opposite of produced on WikiLeaks. They were gone. They were wiped from her computer. Yes. So the joke was for the one set of emails, the ones that were gone, dead, never to be discovered by any humans. The joke was, which Kimberly Guilfoyle coincidentally was the first one to tell this joke. I did a full Nexus search when we found out that Hillary had wiped these emails. First, Kimberly Guilfoyle said on the 5, hey, maybe Trey Gowdy can strike a deal with Putin and get those emails. It was a joke. In fact, about 2 or 3 Republican candidates used it in debates, the exact same joke. Russians are going to see more of Hillary's files than the voters will when she was Secretary of State, because everyone was talking about how either Russia or China or actually, Iran or Israel had gotten those emails off a private server. It makes no sense for Trump to talk about hacking those emails because they were gone. There was nothing to hack. She had wiped them. So on one hand, although I do hate explaining a joke, and the point one is it was obviously a joke. The media got it every time anybody else said it, whether it was Bobby Jindal or Kimberly Guilfoyle. It was only when Trump said it. That's not funny. But they're the ones always saying we have to take him literally. We have to take him literally. Well, that's why he didn't say hack. He said, Mr. Putin or whatever, if you're listening, I hope you can find the 30,000 missing emails. He was talking about the emails that were wiped, obviously from what he said, not the 20,000 emails that had been hacked, stolen, and spread on WikiLeaks for all the world to see. We didn't need to find those. They were on WikiLeaks. There were 20,000, not 30,000. He said find, not hack, and yet whenever that joke is described, they say hack.
Ann Coulter, again, is with me. The Resistance is Futile is out now. Ann, I'm looking at another half a dozen questions. I'm dying to get your answers on. You must come back because I have to let you take another victory lap on the deep state because you wrote about the intelligence community. I think Breitbart's the only other place I've seen this. The intelligence community is treated as sacrosanct in all of American media. You go through between Clapper and Brennan, and you just go through why it's an absurd premise, which, again, you deserve credit for that. But we don't have time today. I do have to get your thoughts briefly, though, on how is the media treating you. I didn't notice. Did you get on Bill Maher this year? I mean, are people daring to debate the one and only Ann Coulter, or are you getting punished for being correct so often?
Well, as I point out in the book, we're not really getting along in the Trump era. One of my liberal journalist friends, bless his soul, set up a dinner for me last night with a bunch of liberal journalists last night. And other than, I have a Yahoo tape going up with Michael Isikoff today, and that is probably the only interview I will do where there is actual debate with someone on the other side. I happen to think debate is not only fun, but very useful. I realized at this dinner last night, there were, 8, 10 of us, that that every single journalist at the table is in my book other than 2. So they could all look up their names and see what I have to say about them. But it was really fun. And, it's possible to disagree about things, but still make points and not blow up. But that's why I think the cable stations, they don't want to get their ratings higher than 2 million. It's just easy. It's lazy. You got to be pedal to the metal for Trump or pedal to the metal. He's a traitor. We must impeach him immediately.
Yeah,
and no, then to answer your question, in the era of Trump, media consists of what I just described. Either you were 100% he's a traitor who should be impeached and probably drawn and quartered, or he can do no wrong, and the whole problem is Jeff Sessions.